Chapter 17, Brooke.
"Why are you cooking so much?" Charles asked as he checked on me in the kitchen. He was teaching me how to cook spaghetti. "I told you to use those holes at the end of the noodler to measure how much we would need." "I did. I made enough for 4, I explained. 4? Why?" "I invited Peter to dinner," I told Charles as I stirred the noodles. The greasy range hood over the stove was screaming for my attention, but I didn't want to clean it while I was cooking. If any of that gunk landed in the food, I didn't think I could stomach eating it. He grunted. Whether it was in approval or anger, I couldn't tell. I turned to face him. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I thought it would be okay since you guys are friends." He wrinkled his nose at the word. "We aren't really friends, but it's okay. Don't make a habit of inviting people over without asking me, though, okay? I like to be alone." I nodded. "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it." "I know, it's fine," he said. With a sigh, his old body creaked into a dining room chair not far from me. "Where's Millie?" he asked, looking around as if she were hiding in the kitchen somewhere. I motioned to the window, outside doing her homework in the yard. "She has homework already?" he asked, surprised. "Probably not," I admitted. "She may be out there doing math problems for fun." He raised his eyebrows, making his forehead wrinkles go even deeper. "I know, she does that," I said. "I don't know what to make of her. I think she's some kind of genius." "She may be," he said. "I wouldn't be surprised if she is." I bit my lip and sighed wistfully, wondering why I didn't have something that came easy to me like Millie did. "You're a quick study, girl," he said, sensing my attitude. "Don't dismiss that." "There are so many things I don't know," I admitted. "I don't feel like I'm good at anything." "Psst! Yes, you are! Look at how clean that fridge is," he said, pointing to it with his shaky finger. He was right. It was still gleaming, and I was proud of it. "Yeah, but I did it wrong first. You had to teach me," I argued. "Everything has to be taught. You watched, learned, and did it again better. No one can ask for more than that," he said with a smile. I smiled back as a thank you and went back to stirring the sauce. "Brooke, how well do you know Peter?" he asked, his voice low. "How well do you know Peter?" I countered, uncomfortable that this conversation was apparently serious enough for him to use my real name. "I asked you first, girl," he said sternly. Even though his voice got harsher, I relaxed a little when he called me girl. "I know that you used to put out clothes and food for him in Ziploc bags stapled to trees," I admitted. I looked at him slowly, waiting for his expression to give something away. It didn't. The man should have been a poker player. "Do you know what he is?" he prodded. "Do you mean homeless or a wolf?" I asked, throwing the elephant in the room out there. He nodded a quick, crisp nod of affirmation. "Good. It's good that you know both." "That was very kind of you to help him," I said. He shook his head and put his face in his hands. "It wasn't really me," he admitted. "I mean, I was the one that physically put them out there for him, but it was all Helen's idea." I turned off the burners and sat across from him. "Helen knew about Peter too?" He looked up with tears in his eyes and nodded. They made his blue eyes shine even brighter. "We couldn't have children," he said. "She got pregnant many times, more than I care to remember, but her body always attacked the baby. The doctor said her body thought the baby was a sickness it needed to get rid of, so she couldn't carry a child. I thought we had given up and settled into our lives, accepted that she and I were one complete family, when she first saw the naked little boy in the woods." I stayed silent as he stopped to take a breath, holding back tears. I thought she was crazy, hallucinating her dreams of having a child to take care of. I was sincerely worried about her. I actually made her see a therapist. She refused to speak to him, wouldn't talk about the boy at all. That scared me more than anything because the woman would talk to a brick wall. I had never heard her choose silence like that. When we got in the car, she said she did it to protect the boy, and she'd keep her mouth shut if I put her in that situation again, even if they tortured her. She told me that he could turn into a wolf and that he needed our help. I wanted to have her admitted to the hospital. She was so furious at me for not believing her that her silence extended to me as well. She didn't talk to me for days and flat out ignored me if I spoke to her. She broke the silence once to say, "Until I hear you say that you were wrong, don't expect me to say a thing." He chuckled at the memory. She was feisty, and I wasn't used to being on the receiving end of it. We were always a team, always had each other's back. I don't know why I couldn't have blindly believed her. I should have. I went out into the woods to look for any trace of what she had seen, taking my gun in case I ran into something that wanted to eat me. It was a muddy day in March. I gasped aloud when I saw the boy's footprints, and then nearly fainted when I saw them stop suddenly and shift into the prints of a wolf. I heard him howl in the distance and sprinted back to the house as fast as my legs would take me. I told her I was wrong that day and every other day until she died. His voice broke on the last word, and he sniffed. We made it our life's mission to care for the boy. I refused to let her go out into the woods, but I would deliver anything she asked me to. I knew there were worse things than wolves in there. The wolf was easy to take care of. All I would have to do was buy a hog from the butcher and toss it in the woods. The wolf could sniff it out and feed itself. The boy was a whole different beast. He was terrified of me, wouldn't come close to me, wouldn't listen to a word I said. I didn't even know if he understood English because he never spoke. I tried to invite him in, make a bed for him on the porch, and the barn, and the yard, and he wouldn't dare come beyond the woods. Finally, I decided to bring a bed to him. I bought an old camper from a buddy of mine in Stratham and hauled it deep in the woods. I threw it out as if it were trash, along with anything else I thought the boy might need. I hoped that if he thought it wasn't mine anymore, he would take it. Thankfully, I was right. I had to remind myself to breathe. Charles tricked Peter into taking the camper so he would have a home. Why didn't you tell anyone about him? I asked. Why didn't you call the police? He shook his head. Helen wouldn't hear of it. She was terrified of what they would do to him. I wouldn't have dared to betray her trust again. The wolf grew to trust me. He was smart. He would remember that I fed him and come to the edge of the woods looking for food when winters got rough. The boy, however, did not share those instincts. I tried to tell him to come to me if he needed help, but he never did. Not until he carried you here that night, he said, pointing to my arm. I sat back in my chair. The two of you had never spoken until that night? Not once, he said. I know he cares for you, but I do too, so I want to warn you. You can't trust the wolf. Like I said, the wolf and the boy are not the same. That's always been evident. The wolf doesn't remember what the boy does, and the boy doesn't remember his time as a wolf. Just because Peter cares for you doesn't mean that the wolf would spare you. It took me years to gain the wolf's trust. I still don't know if I've fully gained Peter's. You aren't afraid of the wolf? I asked. He shook his head. Nah, not anymore. Like I said, he trusts me. It's like having a wild pet. Not that I could get close enough to pet him. I know he won't hurt me, but it took me years to feel that way. I carried a tranquilizer gun with me for a long time in case he attacked. He must have noticed my bugged-out eyes. I wouldn't have shot it unless I absolutely had to, but I had to protect myself. I still had a wife to care for back then. He sighed and bit his lip with his perfectly shaped teeth, making it obvious they were dentures. I guess that's why I stopped carrying it. I didn't care if he killed me anymore. I would take care of him until my dying day, exactly like I promised her. But other than that, I had no reason to continue living. The conversation had taken a dark turn quickly. I looked around at his newly cleaned kitchen, remembering how nasty it had been only days before. This man was capable. He knew how to clean, but he didn't have the motivation to. He barely had the motivation to survive. Wouldn't Helen have wanted to? Yes, Helen would have wanted me to take care of myself, he interrupted me. I don't need an intervention speech. I'm still here, aren't I? I nodded. Stay that way, okay? We need you. Peter, Millie, and me. He smiled. Did he tell you his name was Peter? Yes. Why? That's what Helen named him, he said with a smile. It was a reference to the old song Peter and the Wolf by Sergei Prokofiev. That's what I've always called him, whether in boy or wolf form. I felt like I had been slapped in the face. Peter isn't his real name? What's his real name then? I don't know, he admitted. I'm not even sure if he does. I wondered how I was going to sit through dinner on all of that new information without bursting at the seams. But hours passed, and Peter never came. Charles and Millie did their best to distract me from my disappointment and worry, but it consumed me. Peter had broken a promise to me. I never thought that would happen.